Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Kucera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Kucera.
Welcome in, Joe Kucera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that continue to watch us on the live feed on Facebook. We appreciate that very much. We want to continue to grow the audience as much as we can, wherever we can, and we'll certainly do that with social media. However, please remember this is a podcast, so we'd love to have you download the podcast if you haven't already done so. You could do that by going to iTunes. Just type in Real Estate Radio Live. You can go to Stitcher, Google+, all the normal places. You could also visit our website at 𝗟𝗡𝗩𝗘.com. That's 𝗟𝗡𝗩𝗘.com. The focus has been the same for almost 8 years, and that is education information, and we provide the consumers on a regular basis with great guests like today, content information, really to help you make wise decisions in and around your real estate, so we want to continue to do that. We keep the shows typically on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right around 3 o'clock for those who follow us on Facebook. And again, we appreciate those tuning in very much. Well, let me invite my guest in. He is the CEO for New American Funding, Mr. 𝗥𝗲𝗋𝗋. Rick, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good to have you here, Rick. Thanks again for spending some time. If we can, before we get started, we have a number of different things to cover. If you could give the listeners a little bit about your background and then when you guys decided to start New American Funding.
Okay, great. My background is, kind of a serial entrepreneur. I started my first company out of high school with a couple of high school buddies and sold it in the mid-'90s and retired, or at least I thought I retired until the stock market where I had to go back to work. And that's when I was, just dating Patty, the co-founder of New American Funding, time, and didn't really know what to do with the rest of my life since I hadn't worked in 3 years, and she suggested I get into mortgage, and that was literally my introduction to the mortgage industry.
Wow.
Unlike Patty, who's been doing it like 4.
Well, so you guys made a great pair and complement. So your background, technology, marketing, you had done a lot of that in the background. So did Patty decide, hey, we should start a company? How did that come about?
It was Patty at the time was actually running a contract processing company.
Okay.
And worked for a small broker shop with some pretty high-producing agents. So she invited me in, to kind of cut my teeth on what mortgage lending was all about. I just naturally wanted to go the direction of a call center because it was the way I could make the best use of my marketing background, making the phone ring.
Right.
So started doing that. We kind of ran that company for a couple of years. That was in 2001 and 2, and then 2003, we're like, okay, we want to kind of do our own thing exclusively. So that was the formal start of New American Funding. What's interesting is our corporation name is Broker Solutions. The reason was when I first got into the mortgage business, I had no intention on doing loans. I wanted to develop technology to help broker shops do loans better. So I came up with the corporation, Broker Solutions, Inc. And then when I started actually doing loans to kind of perfect my product, I realized there's pretty good money in loans. Maybe I'll just... And so that's why in 2003, I DBA'd Broker Solutions, New American Funding. And Patty and I just started, I want to say we were maybe 30 people.
Wow.
And predominantly call center. Patty still processed every loan. I can't remember exactly what year we started doing too much volume for her and her assistants to process the loan. But it's just been slow, organic growth ever since.
Well, you say slow, Rick, but it seems, most people would say that's an incredible amount of success and growth. Over the last 4 to 5 years, there's been a lot of growth. To grow that organically like that, tell us a little bit about, and I talked to Patty about this yesterday too, your perspective on what it takes to grow a company like this so quickly, but more importantly, that the right people in the right seats and really to, keep that culture. How do you do that?
Well, I think if you really boil it down, that's the only role and responsibility of a CEO, especially as you start to achieve any kind of size. your only job is just to recognize talent in people.
Okay.
And figure out a way to attract them to your organization and make and keep them happy. I mean, that's literally my whole job. I sit in a lot of meetings, but you get to a certain point where you don't actually do anything other than try to find the right people and put them in the right seat. So I think that we've done a pretty good job of that. I like to characterize the way we built New American Funding as a bottom-up organization as opposed to a top-down. And what that means is I'm a practitioner. So I like to roll up my sleeves and do the job and then get to a point where I become the person that gets the job done. And that's a pretty difficult leap. I know it was difficult for me as I've gone through my evolution in business. It's even harder to get other people to understand the importance of making that leap of doing a job to getting a job done. But the beauty of it is if you can find that in people, then they're staunch advocates for the company because you gave them that chance to evolve and grow. And it just gives you the underpinnings of talent that actually knows how to do the job, which is different, than a lot of companies, I think.
No.
Pat still reviews loans. Christy Bunce, our COO, she second signs loans, and she's running this organization of 3,000 people now because she started here as an underwriter. And you can go almost to a person of the people that run this company. They started out doing a job, and we've just been very effective in recognizing talents in people and giving them an opportunity to grow within our organization.
Yeah, well said. And pretty flat, too, in terms of senior management, right? I mean, you think about it, was that the philosophy from day one, Rick, or as you guys evolved, was that, keep it kind of lean and mean on the top side and decisions are probably made quicker and more effectively? What's the philosophy behind that?
Yeah, I really have to credit Patty and Christy for kind of coming up with that structure. Patty was and still is a top originator. She couldn't stop the loans if she wanted to, doing it for so long. And she's like, not everything's going to be a yes.
Yeah, right.
There's going to be no's with regard to loans. It's just you can tell somebody no in 24 hours, not 24 days.
Right.
That's when the frustration comes into it. So we've created a very fluid escalation path for decisioning loans. We have the talent at the top of the house because they're all underwriters. So they can look at these files and understand what we're willing to take a risk on from a credit perspective very, very quickly. And that's always kind of been the mandate. Let's get those answers out quickly so we don't have frustrated borrowers, frustrated real estate agent partners. And that's always served us, but it really serves us now when every consumer and every partner has the social media pulpit to extend their feelings about how something went.
Right.
You've got to do a good job to make sure you make people happy, or they're going to do a good job making you look bad online. So, it's vitally important now. It was always important, but it's really important now if you want to make sure you get your share of positive reflection out there on the social media world.
Yeah, I would agree. So speaking of that, we'll switch gears a little bit. I want to dive into technology. I know it's something you've done really well out. You brought that vision and that image to, kind of New American Funding and a lot of the stuff you've done. How has, and we're going to get into deeper in a number of these different things, how has the technology part of, the success of the growth can you look at part of the growth and the success and the acceleration, Rick, and say, technology played a part of this, or is it just that you stayed on the cutting edge as you evolved with it?
It's interesting because we've been developing our own technology since I started in 2003.
Right.
It's been 15 years. And what's fascinating is for a lot of those years, nobody really cared. I would get so excited to talk about my tech and the stuff that we developed to make the job of the loan officers or the experience better and more efficient. And, for the first, call it 10 or 12 years of it, all the loan officers that came in, they were like, yeah, well, what are your rates and what is the comp, And so we obviously had to make sure that we fired on all those cylinders. But what's interesting is probably about 4 years ago or so, everything kind of changed. Whereas, loan officers in general were the least interested in the technology. All of a sudden it became the number one thing that they were asking about. And I think it wasn't because the behavior of the loan officers was changing. It's that they recognized the behavior of their borrower was changing.
Oh, that's well said. I think that's a That's a good point, and I think there's something there for sure. So in terms of that, why do you think that our industry, when I say our industry, we'll talk a little bit about real estate too, because we work side by side, married to each other. Why do you think our industry was a little slower to adapt? And was it just that we got away with it and it's always the way it's been, or it's been a big old ship hard to turn?
No, I think it's probably more the first part is, people have been doing this the same way for decades, and it's always worked. And, you got to appreciate the fact that the average age of the practitioner is, when I talk about this, I'm talking more about outside distributed retail. They're older. I mean, the average age of an outside loan officer is like in their 50s, and so you're in your 50s and you've been doing something quite effectively, I might add, the same way for 30 years. And all of a sudden somebody is coming to you saying, hey, you need to change. You're like, no, I don't. I'm doing fine. And they're right. They were doing fine. And a lot of them still are. But, I think that it's a lot of the moves being made by the big brands and all the fear of disruption that's more prevalent, I think, in the real estate space and the loan space. But everybody's kidding themselves if they think, these disruptors aren't going to focus on lending and or real estate because it's just too much money there for them to. They're massive industries with trillions of dollars at stake. And so you are going to see some very clever people come into the market. And I think that that's the kind of tap on the shoulder that a lot of the practitioners receive where they're thinking, yeah, it's time for me to evolve. I've got to come up with a playbook, that'll allow me to be relevant in the changing market. So I think that's the reason why it took so long is because the incumbents just did so well for so long using the tried and true tools, but now I think they realize it's time to change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I study this stuff every day primarily because of what I do and then with this podcast and the radio too. But, so we all know that, most everybody starts their search online. I think it's 96% of people start their search online when it comes to real estate or lending. However, when they make a decision, typically on the real estate and lending side, you typically have, somewhere near 90%, 87, 88, that still decide they want to use someone. In other words, they see the benefit in using someone still. So we know we have a more educated, informed consumer. I think we could all agree on that. Where does that change? How do you see that in the future? I mean, they're going to become more educated and more informed, so I think we all agree on that. But how does the human dynamic part change, or does it, over the next couple of years, and how they're and actually a transaction part of it?
Well, I think when it comes to purchase transactions, all the surveys and studies show that the home buyer, especially the first-time home buyer, wants a trusted advisor in the market. If you've done this transaction 5-6 times, maybe it's not as important, or if maybe it's the refi, it's not as important. When it comes to finding a home, they want the millennial set, which, let's face it, they're big and growing and will be the predominant force in home buying for years to come. They want in-market trusted advisor because it's not simply about a loan and a home. It's about understanding the neighborhoods and, understanding the needs beyond, can I qualify for a loan? There's a lot of things that you just have an advantage at when you're in market with the consumer. And we've actually proven it. We've done tests where we've introduced borrowers to our in-market agents along with our call center agents and tracked how effective both were at achieving loans. And the in-market agents are double what the call center agents are. The thing that the call center agents are better at is follow-up, incubation, understanding how to use tools to be effective in pushing out relevant information to borrowers in a timely fashion. See, this is where technology and marketing really comes into play. And why we've spent so much time developing what we've developed is our goal is to arm the in-market agent with everything a call center agent has and much, much more, because with their in-market advantage, they should win a larger share of the time.
Yeah, well said. You just discussed, or you talked about all the disruptors, and I would agree with you. There's, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars a month going into disruption in the mortgage, the fintech side, the real estate. So what does a mortgage company need to do as you sit here today, Rick, and you're planning with the executive team? What do you need to do to kind of plan for the future over the next 3 to 5 years? Are there things that you could say, boy, we really need to change this or add this, or you just, what does that planning look like?
Well, I can talk to you about what that planning looks like for us because we're very adamant about our plan. You know, I'm convinced that loan officers and real estate agents will need to rely on some percentage of their business coming through internet channels at some point in the very near future.
Agreed.
There's just too many buyers that want to self-serve. They're out there on the internet. They're researching. They're perfectly capable of doing that on their own. As a matter of fact, they prefer it. And the marketers that are out there are very savvy. They know how to capture these people at the right times and deliver them. Right now, they're delivering them to, you know, a lot of the larger call centers because the call centers are really good at incubating them. And I think that disruptors believe that that's their advantage and that they're going to be able to chisel off a larger share of this new buyer behavior that's starting their journey online. And I think they're right. So a lot of what we've developed is to put in place the assembly line necessary to effectively get in front of these buyers and make sure that we're in a position to deliver them with geographic significance to the right people in the right places and give those people the tools and the training to incubate them as well as any of the larger aggregators were. So first you need the in-market tools. So we developed our mobile apps because you need to be mobile. As an outside loan officer, you also need to pay attention to doing your broker previews and going to coffee with real estate partners and going to open houses and doing all those types of things. You can't ignore that because a large percentage of your business is going to still come from those efforts. But then you're going to need a format to be able to work within where you can take live calls, not chase leads down because you only get a hold of about 25% of the leads that you acquire. So you need an apparatus in place to get a hold of the borrower and deliver them to you in real time in an apparatus that you can serve them regardless of where you are in the field. So that's everything that we built, including developing our CSR program. These are the kids that get the borrowers on the phone. The telephony to understand who's available and where to take that call in real time while the borrower is waiting and deliver that person. I mean, that's got to happen in seconds, right? So got a guy in Omaha that wants to talk to somebody in Omaha and I'm in California. I got to do all that using systems and technology so I can do it very, very quickly and then deliver all the information that we've been able to ascertain at that front end side, which might include assembling some portion of the documentation, running credit. I mean, there's various things that we can do early stage to make sure we're getting a good qualified buyer out to a loan officer. And then it's about incubation, right? So you need to put them on drip campaigns that are designed for the stage of the funnel that they're in. You need to communicate with them. So we're developing communication protocols so you can do texting and messaging and stuff like that very simply through the apps. And it's all about collaboration with the right real estate partners. Otherwise, everybody's trying to rip deals away from each other. So getting those similar tools into the hands of our real estate partners so you can collaborate effectively and serve those borrowers, and then you'll just win. You'll win from the 25-year-old sitting in a 6x6 cubicle 4 states away. You know, it's just a better experience for the borrower, for the consummation of the deal, finding the real estate. Everything is just a better experience. But everybody's got to understand it takes all of it. You can't do A and K and J. You got to do A through Z, and then you will be successful.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's well said. Speaking of technology, I know you mentioned a little bit, you talked a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about some of the technology New Americans developed. I mean, you just did a little bit about the benefit of the loan officer and the interfacing with the customer. What types of things are on the horizon, I guess, is the first question and I have for you. And the second for that one, Rick, is it an advantage? It seems like an advantage for a company like New American and others that are, you know, kind of privately owned and they can move quicker and a lot more entrepreneurial to compete on the technology side against like a Wells or a Chase or someone of that nature.
Yeah, I think that Wells and B of A and Chase and all of them, they have the advantage of the brand.
Right.
And the locations, but that's where their advantage starts and stops. They don't have the speed. They don't have the efficiencies. They don't have the products. They don't have a lot of what you need to effectively serve a diverse group. And the millennials, besides them having different wants and needs in terms of how they interact, a lot of them have diverse income makeups too, because they do contract work, they're more mobile, you've got gaps in income, you've got things that your typical generation didn't really have. So to have flexible products that address the needs of all those different types of borrowers are vitally important. In terms of the technology investment, really the time, because I see this a lot now as we talk to recruits, which is what we do a lot every day, is trying to figure out where they're going to hang their hat for the next part of their business career, is we get a lot of loan officers that come in from our friendly competitors that talk about, oh yeah, well I've got this and that and the other thing, and there are all these products that they're going out and they're scurrying and they're buying off the shelf to be able to show their loan officers and their real estate agent partners, look, we have tech. Yeah. The problem with that is it creates silos of technology that are very challenging to use efficiently and effectively. We build all of our own tech. With the exception of our LOS system, all of our tech is homegrown. So our mobile apps are homegrown, our desktop versions are homegrown, and it gives us the ability to be very flexible and to integrate everything into one seamless portal. So you don't have to come in and out of technologies to do it. That's very important because it's confusing. It's hard to get outside originators who are all over the United States to focus and understand one thing. It's a lot harder to understand 5 or 6 or 7 things. So I think that the time to have invested in technology really was a decade ago. So now you're evolved and you're efficient. You've got the teams built and you've got your research in the field about what's actually wanted and needed so you can deliver something that's relevant. And that's where we're blessed because we made the decision to do that a long time ago, and now that's what we have. We have our tools are out there. They're used. Our tools are actually now developed by our LOs. Right in our mobile app, there's a drop down that you can put in, and hey, it would really be great if you could add this. And all that information goes straight to our team, and they aggregate it all, and they say, oh, we've been asked 7 times to sign the final 1003 on the mobile app. So you don't have to go to the office, print it out, wet signing, to do all that kind of stuff on a closed loan. So we say, great, let's build it. And so absolutely everything that we add is the result of a request from the field. And now, we do a lot with builders. So now we're getting requests from, builder agents. Hey, it would be great if we had this types of tool that was for builders. So we're going to come up with a GoGo Builder. And then we got the GoGo Partner for the real estate agents. We're really enhancing that. So these are all things that create little on-ramps of business to the LOs who I think in the very near future are going to have to rely on different types of business in order to be successful.
Yeah. What you just said a minute ago, I want to piggyback on that a little bit and have you expanded that. The fact that you were smart enough and you had the wisdom to start that technology so many years ago, isn't the challenge now, Rick, as we enter a changing market, and markets always change, and we may be in for some change here in 19, then the challenge becomes when things get a little leaner, it's a little more difficult for companies to all of a sudden decide to spend a lot of money on technology, right?
Absolutely. I saw a statistic with the MBA the other day when it comes to the cost to produce a loan. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it is, but it was the amount of money the average mortgage company spent on technology. Wow. And this is your LOS system, your CRM, your point of sale, all your tools, everything. But it was staggering. It was like, I want to say $1,200 or $1,300 a loan. Wow. It was a big number of every single loan that goes only towards technology. And where we did a lot of our heavy lifting, years and years ago, when, let's face it, loans were kind of falling out of the sky. It was easier to be profitable in 16 than in 18. So we did that heavy lifting back then, and now we own the resources to develop this stuff on our own. So we're not having to go out and spend so much a month per agent on this and so much a month per agent on that. I mean, that stuff adds up. Yeah. We just have the ongoing cost of our tech team and building whatever it is that they're going to build next. So I think we've got an advantage from an economic standpoint, just based on where all of our friendly competitors are scurrying to bring on technologies so they don't lose agents, right? That's their asset. Right. Because they want to be able to illustrate, we're relevant. We have all this tech too. Right.
How about
adds up.
Yeah, no, it's. I think that's exactly right. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want to jump in and talk a little bit. I mean, you started You talked a little bit about the call center model. You know that better than anyone in the industry. You've married that with the retail side. What are your thoughts on this whole lead generation? Where do you see this? There's the Zillows of the world and Open Doors, and of course that's on the real estate side. But then you see the monsters that were created like Quicken Loans and Loan Depot, primarily on a refinance market, Rick, and now that's dried up. How do you see all this kind of playing out? Are these models going to change? Are they going to consolidate? How do you see all this kind of shaking out in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of consolidation. I think that the bigger players have the advantage of being able to absorb their back office expense over more loans.
Mm-hmm.
So the pressure is really going to be on companies that don't do larger amounts of business. My prediction is you're going to see a lot of smaller companies close up shop, join a bigger bank, or become a broker. I think those are the three things you're likely to see happen. By becoming a broker, you give up everything. You're just, you're working bare bones. I think that model is going to see a resurgence a little bit just because of all the pressure being put on the smaller independent mortgage banks. But it's going to be somewhat short-lived because as the expectations materialize in terms of the experience, they're going to have to deliver it, and they're not going to have the revenue to invest in the type of technology that I think are going to have to be just, you have to have it type of thing. So I think that's the future. I think you're likely going to see a hybrid. That's what we're building, is really a hybrid of, we call them 𝗟𝗓 and 𝗟𝗓. 𝗟𝗓 is inside loan agent, 𝗟𝗓 is outside loan agent, to deliver leads in market and or to call centers when it's appropriate to do so, and then to build out that assembly line so you just don't lose anything through the cracks. It's the attention to detail and building out the assembly line that's the challenge. When I look at a company like Quicken Loans, I mean, obviously they're the 800-pound gorilla in the space. I think that they're amazing. Really, I think that they're amazing at the assembly line. I don't think that they're, from what I know, that amazing in their technologies.
Okay.
I feel like ours are better, but they're just really good at the assembly line. And because their coffers are very full by having such enormous market share, they spend so much money on branding. And I think that their motivation is, I'm going to get these people earlier in the funnel because of my branding efforts, and then I'm going to do a better job cultivating them than the in-market real estate agents and loan agents that are all over the place and not cooperating, collaborating. And I'm going to be able to organize and take that segment of business. I think that that's why they're opening up their own real estate company now. I think that competing against the in-market guys that are just not cooperating, that they have advantage. And I think they're right. And that's why when I talk, it's time to organize, guys. If you're a loan agent, immerse yourself in the tools, understand the market's changing. Don't get upset by it, appreciate it. Talk to your real estate agents about the exact same thing. Let's work together to make sure we're not disrupted. Yeah. I think that they can become the disruptors then.
Right. I think that the hybrid model you talk about is excellent. I would agree. You talk about a company like Quicken. That has to be a behavioral. I mean, I'm not sure. How do you get, historically you have these call centers with thousands and thousands of people that are kind of trained for the refinance market, Rick. How do you change that behavior, conversation, relational part when all of a sudden they're saying, okay, guys, looks like we got to start going after the purchase business now? How does that work?
It's harder. I don't want to call it a disservice because that sounds like a disparaging marker against Quicken. And I think the world of Quicken, I know their leadership and they're great, great people. But, their model is this Uber assembly line where they've got these young kids that they just shower them with leads. They teach them what buttons to push and when to push them. And business just goes down their enormous pipe as a result of being really, really good at that. But when you're dealing with first-time home buyers in market, I would guess that most of the people administering lending at a company like Quicken, they don't even own a home. They're like 20-year-old kids, So to have that tried and true experience of what it means to be a homeowner, not just can I get you financing, it really is better served in market with tenured professionals. They know about real estate's local. They know about bond programs and down payment assistance and, a lot of things that they just can't administer effectively in a call center environment. So I think that Quicken is great. I think they have no choice but to point their gun at the purchase market since that's what the prevalent loan being done today is. I think they're going to get their share because they're that good. But I think in order for the in-market agents to compete against that, they've got to take seriously the collaboration and understanding how and when to use tools.
Yeah.
And that's what we're focused on building.
Very good. Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a little bit about the acquisition. Speaking of that, you're talking about consolidation. You guys just made a big announcement a couple of days ago, purchased a company. Can you share that with us a little bit? Tell us about that.
Sure. You know, we've prided ourselves on growing organically. We actually started outside distributed retail in 2012. So we've only been at it 6 years, and we'll do $8.5 billion in outside distributed retail this year and another couple of billion in the call center. And we like that because we're able to hand select the people, and they're choosing us just as much as we're choosing them.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates great cultural fit and all those types of things. So we've never considered an acquisition because of that. What really got us to start thinking about it was reading all the companies that were deciding to close their doors. And so a lot of these companies that really did a great job and they were great regional players, it was a shame. They built companies, they built relationships with great LOs that were serving great real estate agents in their market. And because of the business climate, they've got to throw in the towel. So we started to think, even though we're going to have to lead with, is it a cultural fit first? Because we care deeply about our culture and will not do anything to disrupt it. There's got to be good regional players that like the fact that we've got this established toolkit and playbook. And by disconnecting from their brand and connecting to our train, take all the advantage. And that's what we fell in love with in the marketplace opportunity because Keith White and Nellie Cummings, who run the company, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
They're going to stay engaged. They're going to keep running the business unit. They're going to keep leading their people. They're just plugging everything into a system with all these tools. So it made a lot of sense for them. And it made a lot of sense for us because we weren't even in those markets. Having only been at outside distributed retail for a handful of years, there's a lot of the United States that we're not even in.
Yeah.
So to the extent that we find the right partner with the right culture in the right geography, doing the right mix of business, I think it can really be a match made in heaven. And that's what it looks like we were able to found in the marketplace.
Great. Congratulations on that. As we close out, Rick, what does the next couple of years look like for New American Funding? Is it going to be strategic growth still? Are you going to be looking for other potential opportunities like that or a combination of organic still? How do you see that next couple of years?
I think all of the above.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of loan agents that are appearing that we're excited about talking to and showing us what we got. So the organic thing is clearly going to continue. Working to keep our cultural fiber together as we grow. That's always a main priority to us so we don't lose people out the back door just as soon as we bring them in the front. Continue developing our tools and our playbook to be more relevant for the buyers tomorrow. And should the right geographic player show up, I'd love to take a look at that too.
Very good.
We've hedged ourselves well. We retain all of our servicing. We've got a big and growing servicing portfolio. We do a lot of very unique things to keep the consumers with our New American Funding family, with printing the loan officers and their real estate agent partners on the mortgage statements and the post-close thank you card campaign and all these things. So now it's just create more on-ramps into this great thing we built and continue on into the future.
Very good. Hey, Rick, you and Patty have done a remarkable job. I want to congratulate both of you, what you've done so far, plus it's a bright future ahead. And thank you again for the time and the insight. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure it's been very informative. It has been for me. I'm sure it has been for our listeners as well.
Well, thank you, Joe. I sincerely appreciate it anytime.
All right. Take care. Happy holidays to you, Rick.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. That's Rick 𝗟𝗡𝗋, CEO of New American Funding. Great interview. Him and Patty, what a great job the last couple of days, and a treat for us, of course, for listenership as well. This is Joe Kucera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks again for tuning in. For more information, you can always go to 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗓.com. Take care. Happy holidays.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗓.com. That's 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗢.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗡𝗙live.com.